I never believed in second chances until the one that came wrapped in my worst nightmare. Waking up in Senator Harlan Graves' body, his tailored suit choking me like a lie I'd worn for years, I realized revenge wasn't about justice. It was about becoming the monster he always was. And God help me, as his Rolex ticked against my stolen wrist. I felt the first thrill of it. Dark and delicious, like blood in my mouth after biting my own tongue. It started with a betrayal so clean it could have been scripted by Hollywood, my fiancé, Harlan, the golden boy of DC. Politics, slipping a ledger of falsified donations into my purse during our engagement party. I was the perfect patsy, Raven Ellis, the ambitious aide with a chip on her shoulder from the wrong side of the tracks. Fresh out of a state college, nobody remembered. He was the senator-in-waiting, all Ivy League charm and backroom handshakes, whispering sweet nothings about our future while his eyes scanned the room for donors. That night, as champagne flutes clinked and flashbulbs popped, he kissed me on the cheek and murmured, "You're my rock, babe." Don't ever forget that. Hours later, FBI agents were cuffing me in the marble-floored lobby of the Hay Adams, the ledger burning a hole in my designer knockoff. Embezzlement, they said. Election fraud. Harlan stood in the background, his face a mask of shocked betrayal, tears glistening just enough for the cameras. The headline screamed, "Rising star's fiancé steals spotlight with his campaign funds." Prison was a special kind of hell, the kind they don't glamorize in Netflix specials. Litchfield Women's Correctional, upstate New York. All gray concrete and the stench of despair mixed with industrial cleaner. I lost 20 pounds in the first month, not from the slop they called food, but from the knot in my gut that never untied. The other inmates called me Pollyanna at first, because I kept insisting it was a mistake, that Harlan would come through with the lawyers, the appeals. He didn't. His visits stopped after the plea deal, 10 years, reduced to 7 if I kept my mouth shut about certain indiscretions. His letters? All Hallmark bullshit. "I still love you, Ray. This is killing me." Bullshit. The truth slithered out in whispers from a guard who moonlighted as a blogger. Harlan was engaged to a Vanderbilt heiress now, climbing higher on the hill. His tragic ex, just a footnote in his redemption arc. But the real gut punch came 6 months in, during a rehab program they funneled us into, yoga mats on linoleum, some ex-hippie droning about chakras and past lives. That's where I met Mama Luz, the wiry old Dominican woman in for check kiting, who claimed she could swap souls with anyone who'd wronged you. At first, I laughed, nerves frayed, mind cracking under the fluorescent buzz. But Luz had eyes like polished obsidian, and stories that stuck, husbands humbled, bosses beggared, all through rituals involving salt circles, whispered incantations, and a locket of hair from the target. "It's not magic, Mija," she rasped, her accent thick as the humidity in the rec room. "It's balance. The universe don't like debts unpaid." I humored her, trading commissary smokes for her lessons. Little did I know, she'd been watching me, waiting for the rage to ripen. The swap happened on a solstice night, the kind where the moon hangs low and bloated over the prison fences like a guilty conscience. Luz smuggled in a vial of something herbal and foul, wormwood and graveyard dirt, she said, mixed with a strand of Harlan's hair I'd clipped during one of his early visits, back when I was still naive enough to hug him through the glass. We chanted in the shadows of the laundry room, the industrial dryers humming like a chorus of indifferent gods. I felt it first as a shiver, then a tear, like my skin was unzipping from the inside. The world blurred, colors inverting, And when I came to, slumped against a rusted vent, I wasn't in my jumpsuit anymore. I was in silk pajamas, sprawled on Egyptian cotton sheets that smelled of his cologne, sandalwood, and entitlement. The mirror across the room showed Harlan Graves staring back, salt and pepper hair, jaw like a Roman emperor, eyes I'd once drowned in now hollow with my own fury. Panic hit like a freight train. I stumbled to the ensuite bathroom of his Georgetown townhouse, splashing water on this face that wasn't mine, the droplets beating on skin that had never known a day's honest labor. My hands, his hands, trembled as I gripped the marble sink, veins bulging like accusations. Downstairs, the grandfather clock chimed 3 a.m., and I heard it then, a soft snore from the guest room. Harlan in my body, fragile and tattooed with regrets, was here, drugged by whatever cosmic backlash Luz had warned about. She called it the echo, the swapped soul lands nearby, dazed and disoriented, ripe for the plucking. I crept down the polished oak stairs, the house a mausoleum of our shared lies, photos of us at galas, my smile frozen in feigned bliss. There he lay, curled under a throw blanket I'd picked out, my old Celtic knot tattoo peeking from the sleeve like a brand of the life I'd lost. For a moment, I almost pitied the thing in my skin. Almost. But then I remembered the courtroom. His testimony crisp as his Brooks Brothers suit. She was always ambitious. Your Honor. Too ambitious. The jury had nodded. The judge had banged the gavel. And I'd been shuttled off to rot while he toasted his narrow escape. No pity left. I shook him awake. My voice, his voice, booming like thunder in the quiet house. Welcome to hell, Harlan. Or should I say, Raven. My eyes fluttered open, confusion twisting features I'd hated in mirrors for years. He sat up, clutching his throat, voice a hoarse whisper. What? What did you do? I laughed, the sound rich and masculine, echoing off the crown molding. I fixed it. Now it's your turn to wear the chains. The first days were a crash course in power's underbelly, the kind of education no Wharton MBA could touch. Harlan's life was a web of secrets, spun so tight it hummed with tension. His calendar was a minefield, breakfast briefings with lobbyists, afternoons schmoozing donors at cigar lounges, evenings in hotel suites with interns who looked too much like me, hungry-eyed and overlooked. I played the part flawlessly, channeling years of watching him from the sidelines. Morning started with a shave that felt like scraping off layers of deceit, the straight razor nicking skin that healed too easily, too privileged. By noon, I was in the Capitol, nodding at handshakes that reeked of backroom deals, my mind cataloging every vulnerability. The betrayal ran deeper than the ledger. I learned quickly. Buried in his encrypted laptop, password a sick joke. Our anniversary was the truth. He'd been skimming since his first campaign, laundering through shell companies I'd unknowingly helped set up. But the real secret? It wasn't just money. There were photos. Grainy and damning. Harlan with a cartel fixer in a Miami high-rise. Timestamps matching the weekend he'd whisked me away for romance. I'd covered for him then. Alibis fed like candy, thinking it was love. Instead, it was a noose, tightening when the feds closed in. He pinned it on me to save his skin, whispering to the DA, she's unstable. Jealous. Make it stick. The crime I bore? Not just fraud, accessory to trafficking whispers that could topple empires. And the mistake? Trusting a man who saw me as disposable. A pretty face to prop up his ascent. Revenge started small. Surgical strikes to unsettle without alerting the machine. I leaked a memo to Politico, anonymous. Of course, hinting at irregularities in his donor logs. Just enough to spark whispers in the cloakrooms. Watched from his desk as aides scurried, loyalty fraying like cheap thread. Then came the personal touches. I canceled his standing tea time with the party chairman, citing family emergency, and instead showed up at his fiancée's bridal shower. Uninvited. Of course. Victoria Vanderbilt. All porcelain doll and trust fund glow. Froze when I, Harlan, sauntered in with a bottle of Veuve and a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Darling, I drawled, handing her the champagne. Let's talk about prenups. Wouldn't want any. Surprises. The room tittered nervously. But I saw the crack, her gaze lingering on the ring finger where his engagement band used to sit. Now bare. That night, I bedded one of his mistresses, a redhead from the Hill staff, just to feel the power shift. Her moans a requiem for his ego. Controversial? Hell yes. Using his body to unravel his conquests felt like poetic justice, laced with venom. But as I lay there, sweat cooling on skin that wasn't mine, a voice in my head, his echoes, whispered, "You're enjoying this too much."
Ray.
Luz had warned me about the bleed. Souls don't swap clean, fragments linger, tainting the host. I started noticing it in flashes, memories that weren't mine, like the taste of Cuban cigars in Miami backrooms, the thrill of a ballot count tipping in my favor. It made me sharper, hungrier, but it also eroded the edges of who I was. Raven Ellis, the girl from Scranton Trailers who'd clawed her way to D.C. on scholarships and spite, began to fade under Harlan's polish. I caught myself admiring the view from his balcony, the Potomac glittering like fool's gold, and wondering if this power could be mine.
Permanently.
The real unraveling began when I dug into the cartel's thread. Posing as Harlan, I met the fixer in a nondescript D.C. diner, the kind with Formica counters and coffee that tasted like regret. "We need to talk expansion," I said, sliding an envelope across the booth. Photos of Harlan's safe house rendezvous. Timestamps damning. The man, tattooed knuckles and eyes like chipped flint,
Leaned in.
"You flipping,
Senator?
after all we've done for you?" I smiled. Harlan's politician's grin. All teeth and no soul. "Consider it a business pivot. Or I go public, FBI gets the full album." He laughed. Low and ugly, but I saw the fear. By week's end, wires were humming, anonymous tips to the Southern District, breadcrumbs leading straight to Harlan's offshore accounts. The press frenzy built like a storm, Graves under scrutiny, cartel ties, and I fanned the flames from his own Twitter. Subtle jabs disguised as deflections. But Harlan in my body wasn't idle. He adapted faster than I expected. The bastard. Reports trickled in from Litchfield contacts Luz had. Your twin causing scenes, demanding psych evals, spinning tales of identity theft to anyone who'd listen. A lawyer showed up, one of his cronies, and suddenly appeals were filing. My old case cracking open like an egg. Panic gnawed at me during late-night Scotch sessions in his study, the decanter sweating condensation onto mahogany. What if he convinced them? What if the swap reversed? And I woke up back in that cell. Him striding free in this shell? The decision came in the dead of night. Controversial as sin, I had to end him. Not kill, too messy, too final, but break him so thoroughly he'd beg for the bars. The climax brewed in a storm-lashed weekend at his Hamptons retreat. The kind of place where deals are sealed with lobster and lies. I'd invited the inner circle, Victoria, the party bigwigs, even the fixer under truce flag. Harlan arrived trussed up in my old clothes, smuggled out by a bribed guard. My face gaunt but defiant. I paraded him as my troubled ex, the guests cooing pity while I fed him truth serums disguised as cocktails. Tell them. Harlan, I murmured, as thunder rattled the windows. Tell them how you fucked a cartel mule for votes. How you framed the woman who loved you to cover your ass. He resisted at first, eyes blazing with my own fire, but the drugs loosened his tongue. Confessions spilled, the ledger, the photos, the whispers of human cargo on yachts off Key West. Gasps rippled through the room like aftershocks. Victoria retched into a potted fern, the chairman's face purpled with betrayal. I thought that was the peak, the revenge cresting like a wave, crashing down on his empire. Sirens wailed distant as feds swarmed the driveway, tipped by my earlier calls. Harlan lunged at me then, my own fists surprisingly strong, nails raking this unfamiliar jaw. We grappled on the Persian rug, bodies slick with rain and rage, until I pinned him, me, and whispered, "This is for every night I cried in that cell, wondering why."
His eyes.
My eyes held no remorse, only a mirror of my darkness. As agents hauled him away in cuffs that bit into my wrists, I straightened Harlan's tie, tasting victory bitter as bile. But twists, as Luz always said, come in threes. The reversal hit like a sucker punch the next dawn, sunlight slicing through blackout curtains. I woke in my body, the Hamptons fading to Litchfield's infirmary, monitors beeping a dirge. Luz hovered, her face etched with sorrow. The echo claimed you back.
Mia.
But not before you planted the seeds. Harlan's empire was crumbling. Arrests. Indictments. Victoria's tearful tell-all on CNN. Yet the real gut twist? In the chaos. A flash drive from his study surfaced in my hands, recordings, not of his sins,
but mine.
Turns out, the ambitious aide had skimmed a little herself, petty cash for mom's chemo. Nothing like his scale, but enough to muddy the waters. He'd known, covered for me once, then used it as leverage when the feds knocked. The betrayal? Mutual. A dance of debts we both owed the devil.
Now.
Paroled early on new evidence, I walk D.C. Streets a free woman, but hollowed. Harlan rots in a cell that smells just like the one he condemned me to, his appeals drowning in scandal. Victory? Or just another swap? Souls scarred and swapped again? I pass his old townhouse daily, the for sale sign a mocking epitaph, and wonder if I do it over. The power, the bleed, it lingers, a shadow in my veins. Some say karma's a bitch, others, that revenge is the true prison.
Me?
I light a cigarette, his brand, unbidden, and exhale smoke toward the sky, debating if the thrill was worth the monster I glimpsed in the mirror. Freedom tasted like stale coffee and bus exhaust when I stepped out of Litchfield's gates, the iron clanging shut behind me like a period on a sentence I'd never finish writing. D.C. hadn't changed, monuments looming judgmental under a smoggy sky. Lobbyists in Lululemon hustling like roaches after dark. But I had. The swap's aftershocks hummed in my bones. A low-frequency buzz that made every reflection suspect. Was that Raven Ellis staring back from the metro glass? Or a fragment of Harlan Graves, his smirk lurking in the curve of my lip? Parole officers droned about job training, Halfway houses, I nodded, mind already miles ahead, plotting the next incision in his unraveling life. The drive back to the city was a blur of Greyhound vinyl and regret. Mom met me at the station, Port Authority chaos. Her hug bony as a birdcage. Eyes rimmed red from years of my babies in the clink, tears. Raven. Honey, you look different. She didn't know the half. We crashed at her sister's in Queens. A walk-up reeking of cabbage and cable news. Fox blaring Harlan's downfall 24/7. Disgraced Senator Graves indicted on federal charges. Anchors dissected it like vultures. The cartel links. The jilted fiancé's memoir deal. The mysterious ex who'd vanished post-scandal.
Me?
They painted as victim saint. A narrative I let fester. But alone in the Murphy bed, sheets threadbare as my conscience, the bleed whispered truths, Harlan's memories surfacing like oil slicks on water. I saw his first bribe, a crisp 100 from a union boss in a Philly dive bar, and felt the shame-guilt cocktail that had hooked him young. Decisions got controversial fast. First order, track the Echo's remnants. Luz had vanished post-ritual, rumors of IC sweeps. Or maybe the universe collecting its fee, but she'd left a contact, a burner app on a smuggled phone. Finish it clean, her last text read.
Clean? Nothing about this was.
I hit the streets. Harlan's Rolodex burned into my brain. Old flames. Fixers. The Vanderbilt crowd now circling like sharks scenting blood. Victoria was mine, spotted her at a Pilates studio in Georgetown. All spandex and suppressed sobs. I approached casual. Fellow survivor. Heard the news. Harlan always did play dirty. Her laugh was brittle china. Over kale smoothies, she spilled. The engagement was PR. A merger of old money and new ambition. She'd known about me. The side piece with scruples. But the cartel? That was new terror. He promised protection, she hissed. Eyes darting. Said you'd take the fall if it came to that. I masked the rage. Ordered another round. That night, I hacked her email, Harlan's old tricks. Child's play, and forwarded the juiciest threads to the Post's tip line. Exclusive. Graves' fiancé and on the grift? The power trip escalated. Dark tendrils wrapping tighter. I landed a gig ghostwriting for a watchdog blog, ironic. Penning exposés on corruption from a keyboard stained with my own sins. Days blurred into stakeouts, tailing Harlan's lawyer from a K Street firm, the weasel-faced prick who'd buried my appeals. One rainy afternoon, I cornered him in a parking garage. Rain sheeting off my hood like tears. Tell your client the truth's catching up, I said. Voice low. Harlan's timbre echoing unbidden. He sneered, "Who the hell are you?" until I flashed a photo from the Hamptons melee. His face in the frame. Arm around a guest who wasn't cleared for the guest list. Blackmail's a blunt tool, but effective by dawn. He'd withdrawn from the case. Citing conflicts. Controversial payoff. I slept with his paralegal for the password to case files. Her body a battlefield of my borrowed bravado. Guilt gnawed post-coital. But so did satisfaction, Raven Ellis. Once the fall girl. Now the puppeteer. Harlan's counterstrikes came sly. Through proxies. My parole officer got a call, anonymous, claiming I'd violated terms with subversive associations. A psych eval followed. The shrink probing like a dentist on meth. Hallucinations? Identity issues? I fed her half-truths. The bleed making it easy to mimic Harlan's defensiveness. It's stress, I lied. Fingers drumming his rhythm on the armrest. But the real probe hit closer. Mom's nursing home tab spiked. Unforeseen fees, courtesy of a shell billing from Harlan's network. She phoned frantic, Ray. They say I owe thousands. Social Security's dried up. My blood boiled. That old Scranton grit surging. I drove to the facility under cover of dusk, confronting the admin in her office of fake ficus and fluorescent hum. Fix it, I growled, sliding a USB with select cartel docs, enough to spook without indicting. Or, this goes viral. Her capitulation was sweet. Check cut by morning. But as I hugged Mom goodbye, her frail frame against mine, doubt crept. Was this revenge? Or just trading one prison for another? The hidden secret unraveled in layers, each peel more rancid. Diving deeper into Harlan's digital crypt, via a dark web broker I'd charmed with tales of corporate espionage, I uncovered the ledger's origin. Not just schemes, it traced to a family curse. Almost. His father, Senator Graves Sr., had died in a car accident that smelled of payoffs gone wrong, whispers of witness tampering. Harlan had idolized the old man, emulating the rot, early deals with the same Miami crew. A teenage raven, none the wiser when he'd recruited me as intern cover. The mistake I'd borne? Not ignorance, complicity. One file. Time-stamped pre-engagement. My signature on a dummy corp. Funneled funds for consulting. I'd signed. Eyes on the prize of his world. Thinking it harmless grease. He'd framed me to protect us both. Or so the accompanying note read. Raise my weakness. If it blows, she walks. Betrayal inverted, love as liability. Sacrifice as setup. Tension coiled tighter. You am as a blackout. Dreams bled. Me as Harlan. Brokering deals in smoke-filled rooms. The thrill of power eclipsing the cost. Waking sweat-soaked. I'd pace Mom's apartment. Chain-smoking menthols that tasted like his vice. The antagonist's cunning shone through even caged. Prison leaks painted him penitent, rallying supporters with injustice narratives. His cell a salon for sympathizers. A rally formed, free Graves, framed by the system, placards waving outside the courthouse. I infiltrated, blending in a sea of red hats and resentment, heart pounding as his lawyer took the podium. Then, from the crowd's edge, our eyes met, his in my face, mine in his memory. A jolt. Electric. Like the swap reigniting. He mouthed. Silent. You think you won? Chills raced. The universe's balance tipping? The decision crystallized over bootleg bourbon in a dive-offy street. Jazz wailing mournful from a sax. Controversial to the core. Expose my own complicity. Burn the bridge to absolution. Or let the partial truth stand and risk the bleed consuming me. I chose fire. Anonymized docs hit WikiLeaks at midnight. Raven's signatures redacted. But context screaming mutual guilt. Headlines exploded. Graves scandal. Two-way street? Age shadow roll. Allies scattered. Victoria lawyered up, suing for defamation. Harlan's rally fizzled. Supporters sniffing the rat. But the cost? My ghostwriting gig evaporated. Whispers of unreliable source, chasing me to temp agencies. Mom's eyes hardened over dinner. What have you done?
Ray?
This ain't the girl I raised. Yet in the quiet aftermath, as rain lashed Queen's windows, a fragile peace settled. The swap had gifted clarity. However poisoned, power's a swap meet. Everyone trading souls for scraps. Harlan's empire ash. Mine a phoenix of scars. But as sirens wailed distant, another bust. Another fall, I wondered if the twist was ongoing. The universe's joke on us both. The fallout from the leak hit like a nor'easter. winds howling through my makeshift life in Queens, uprooting what little stability I'd grafted on. Temp agencies ghosted my calls. Old DC. Contacts blocked numbers. Their voicemails a chorus of cautious concern. Mom's bridge club clucked over potluck casseroles. That Graves boy. Poor Raven. Tangled in his web, but their eyes held judgment. The American dream curdled into tabloid schadenfreude. I took cash under table gigs, bartending at a dive in Astoria, slinging IPAs to off-duty cops who eyed my ink like suspect tattoos. Nights blurred into numb routine, wipe counters, dodge drunks' propositions, crash on the fire escape with a pilfered six-pack, staring at the Manhattan skyline like a taunt. The bleed intensified, Harlan's essence seeping like ink in water. I'd catch myself negotiating tips with his silver tongue, charming a surly regular into a double pour and a wink. Worse, urges, dark and unbidden. One shift. A handsy finance bro in a power tie grabbed my ass, instead of a slap Raven would deliver. I leaned in, Harlan's whisper slithering out. Buy me a drink first? Sailor.
He did.
And more, backroom fumble that left me hollow, staring at the ceiling fan's lazy spin, wondering whose hands had really moved. Controversial calculus. The power play thrilled, a vestige of his dominion. But it eroded me, turning survival into seduction. Luza's warning echoed. Souls don't forget, they haunt. I texted her burner. How to purge. Silence. Then you don't. You wheeled. Revenge's next phase demanded precision. A scalpel to his lingering influence. Harlan's network was hydra-headed, donors who'd fled the headlines but still pulled strings. PACs laundering his legacy into think tanks. I started with the low-hanging fruit, a bundler named Chet, ex-frat boy turned venture vulture, who'd hosted our engagement party. Spotted him at a charity gala in Midtown, tucks straining over beer gut, schmoozing widows for crypto seed money. I crashed in a borrowed dress, Victoria's cast-offs. Ironically, hair pinned like armor. Chet. I purred, clinking flutes. Long time. Raven Ellis. Remember the girl you toasted as future First Lady? His face drained. Champagne fizzing forgotten. We slipped to a balcony. City lights winking complicit. Harlan sends regrets. I lied, flashing a forged email on my burner. But he needs a favor, old debts. The hook set, guilt, greed, the bro code's brittle spine. By night's end, he'd wired funds to a rehab fund for me, enough to breathe, and a list of his Rolodex. Harlan's ghosts mapped. But the antagonist's moxie persisted, cunning coiled even behind bars. Litchfield mail call brought it, a letter, postmarked from his lawyer, script elegant as forgery. Dearest Ray, it began. Harlan's flourish on the R. You think you've won the game? I taught you the board. Enclosed, photocopies of my temp psych eval, annotated with arrows to delusions of grandeur, dissociative episodes. The setup? He'd fed the shrink details via smuggled notes, painting me unstable. Swap rants twisted into mania. Parole revocation loomed, a hearing scheduled. Judge a Graves donor crony. Rage boiled. As the subway's underbelly. I countered dark, visited a tattoo parlor in the village, inked a mirror image of his family crest over my heart, Semper Fi. Twisted to Semper Fraud. Symbolic? Sure. But when I accidentally bumped him during transport to court, volunteering as witness support, the flash of ink under my V-neck drew his gasp. Bitch, he mouthed through the van grate. I smiled, Raven's grit gleaming. Senator. The hidden secret deepened, burrowing like roots in rot. Chet's list led to a safety deposit box in Bethesda, Harlan's bolt hole. Key procured via a bribe teller. Inside, not cash, but binders, yellowed with age. His father's accident? Orchestrated. A rival senator's breaks cut for a primary steal. Harlan had inherited the playbook, adding chapters. My recruitment, not chance, but calculated, vetting my debts, mom's bills. Dangling salvation. The crime I'd shouldered? A proxy kill. Figuratively, funds traced to a whistleblower's suicide, the man who'd sniffed too close to Daddy Graves' grave. Harlan framed me to tie loose ends, my loyalty his blind spot. But the twist's barb, a letter from him to me. Pre-arrest. Unsent.
Ray?
If it comes down, take the hit. I'll pull you out. It's us against them. Sacrifice. Or strategy. The bleed laughed. Memories flooding, his hand in mine at a rally. Promising empires. Betrayals gray. Not black and white. Tension peaked in the hearing room. Wood paneled like a coffin. Air thick with stale briefs and bias. I sat rigid. Parole officer droning exhibits. The judge, silver-haired fox with a Graves pin on his lapel, leaning skeptical. Harlan testified via video link. My face gaunt on the screen. Voice cracking with feigned concern. She's not well. Your Honor. The stress. It's changed her. Lies layered like lacquer. The room nodding. My turn. I rose. Heart hammering. And unleashed the flood. Not just accusations, proof. Projected slides from the box. Timelines. Signatures. His father's ghost in grainy photos. This isn't illusion, I said. Voice steady. Raven's fire tempered by Harlan's poise. It's pattern. And I'm done being the pattern's pawn. Gasps rippled. The judge's gavel cracked like thunder. Revocation denied. Pending investigation. As guards wheeled Harlan out, our eyes locked. His mine, blazing defeat. Victory's edge. Sharp as shattered glass. But decisions haunted. Controversial echoes in empty nights. Post-hearing, I betted Chet for real, gratitude or graft. His penthouse view mocked my queen's crawlspace. Silk sheets a swap for scratchy wool. Morning after. Guilt gnawed. I slipped out with his wallet. A petty echo of the ledger. Powers addict. The bleed purred. Mom confronted over breakfast. News clippings splayed like cards. Ex-aide's bombshell testimony rocks Graves' legacy. Ray. This path. It's eating you. Her eyes. Mirrors of my own regrets. I hugged her, inhaling lavender and loss. Whispering, it's almost over. Almost. The cartel's shadow lengthened. Fixers circling like vultures. A tail on the subway, tattooed knuckles. Miami tan, whispered warnings. Graves O's. You finish what he started? Fear coiled. But so did resolve. I met them in a warehouse off the Anacostia. Rain drumming ironic applause. Tell your bosses the debt's paid in court, I said, handing a drive with scrubbed files. Alibis intact. They laughed, but took it, a nod, and the tail vanished. Clean, as revenge gets. Yet as autumn leaves choked the gutters, doubt festered. The swap had forged me, but at what forge? Harlan's empire dust. Mine a fragile scaffold. I visited Luz's old block in the Bronx. A botanica shuddered. Incense ghosts lingering. A note taped inside. balance restored. Let go. Easy words, harder deeds. In the mirror that night, finally, just Raven, I traced the new ink. Harlan's crest faded under healing scar. The monster glimpsed? Perhaps mine all along. Winter clamped DC. In ice. The Potomac frozen into a silver scar, mirroring the fractures in my mended life. The hearing's ripple spread, indictment snowballed. Harlan's co-conspirators flipping like dominoes. Check cut a deal. Testifying to yacht chats, with unflattering candor, Victoria's memoir tanked amid countersuits. Her Vanderbilt armor cracking into bankruptcy blues. I watched from afar. A studio walk-up in Shaw-eyed scraped fur with bar tips and ghostwriting residuals, tiny. But mine. Windows rattling with metro rumbles like a heartbeat reclaiming rhythm. Mom visited Sundays, bearing Tupperware meatloaf and cautious pride. You're standing tall.
Ray.
But don't let it harden you. Her words stuck. Soft as the Afghan she knitted, a counter to the bleed's hardening alloy. The antagonist's final gambit slithered in like fog off the river, a summons. Not to court, but visitation. Litchfield. Again, irony's cruel loop. I drove upstate in a borrowed Civic. Wipers slapping slush. Gut-churning anticipation. The visiting room hummed banal, kids' crayons scribbling on paper. Lovers' hands pressed glass. Harlan waited. My old jumpsuit hanging loose. My face, hollowed by fluorescent pallor and regrets etch. No cameras this time, just us. Souls stripped. You look good, Ray, he said. Voice a rasp of our shared timbre. The power suits you. I sat, palms flat on the scarred table, fighting the urge to shatter the partition. Save the charm, Senator. Your throne's ash. He leaned in, eyes, mine, piercing with Harlan's calculation. It wasn't all lies. The ledger. I did it for us. Your mom's bills. That scholarship debt. You think I didn't see? The confession hung. A bridge or bait. Memories bled unbidden. Him slipping cash into my purse pre-arrest. Labeled for the future. Sacrifice. Twisted. But the secret's core cracked open then. His whisper slicing deep. The swap? I knew. Luz reached out months ago. Old family contact. Daddy's balance rituals. I greenlit it, thinking it'd buy time. Make you the martyr. Twist reversed, not victim, but pawn in his long con. The body swap his Hail Mary to humanize the fall guy. Rage surged, hot as the desert deals he'd dragged me into. You used me twice, I hissed. Framed, then freed, for your redemption arc. He nodded. Weary. Love's a weapon. Ray. I wielded it wrong. Controversial crossroads. Forgive. Or finish. The room spun. Bleed roaring, his regrets flooding. My fury ebbing into empathy's mire. I saw us young. Scranton girl dazzled by Ivy's spark. Him adrift in paternal shadows. Betrayal's root? Not malice. But mirror. Two climbers clutching the same rung. I stood. Decision crystallizing. Wrought here.
Harlan.
But know this. I'm done climbing your corpse. No more leaks. No final stab, just walk away. Let the system grind him, as it had me. Guards escorted him back. My shoulders slumping. A ghost of the giant. Outside. Snow fell thick, blanketing the prison in false purity. I drove south. Radio crackling Springsteen, Born to Run. Ironic anthem, windows cracked to taste freedom's bite. Back in Shaw. I burned the binders in a backyard barrel. flames devouring proofs and phantoms. The bleed quieted. Fragments settling like silt, Harlan's echoes faded to whispers. My reflection reclaiming the glass. Job offers trickled, podcast on political underbelly. Book deal tentative. Mom beamed over Skype. Proud of you.
Kid.
Now live. But endings, like swaps, aren't tidy. Months on. A package arrived, no sender. Just a locket. Loses. With strands of hair twined, mine.
His.
Hers. Inside. A note. Death's circle. Choose your skin. Debatable closure. Happy. In survival's stubborn bloom? Or tragic? The monster's shadow eternal? I wear it now. Chain cold against collarbone. Stepping into DC's spring bustle, monuments thawing. Dreamers hustling anew. Revenge taught, power's illusion. Betrayals boomerang. Yet as I pass the Capitol, its dome gleaming false gold. A thrill stirs, not Harlan's, but Raven's, forged in fire. The universe balances, we tip the scales,
One soul at a time.
and if the swap calls again, I'll answer. Wiser. Wearier.
Whole.
In the end, was it justice or just another con? You decide. I'm too busy running toward the horizon. Purse light. Heart heavy, but free.